Okay, good morning and welcome to Ag Talk in the Raw. It is actually Thursday. I am a little bit late. Had a lot of things going on. Mr. William here is with me. We should just call him Harry Houdini because this is this crazy swaddling thing that doesn't work. You know, he is like blows out of it. He is a strong little boy. But I think he enjoys the sound of my voice while I'm talking and doing these videos because when I stop, he starts getting a little restless. But anyways, let's see if we can get through some of this before he decides he's going to wake up. So here it is, mid-September. It's September 20th. My daughter's 19th birthday was on the 18th. We had a good time. She came over. Teresa cooked a turkey dinner. It was like Thanksgiving all over again. My mom came over. My dad, he did not. He's got food allergies and he's afraid to eat anything, so unless he knows exactly where it comes from. And I don't blame him because I actually have food allergies, as stupid as it sounds. They are real. Maybe if I never had a food allergy, I could tell you that you're full of shit and, you know, feel happy about myself. But the reality is food allergies really do exist. Peanuts give me a wicked headache. Sweet corn gives me a wicked headache. Anything that is genetically modified or has sodium phosphate or whatever the hell you want to call that, potassium sulfate in it, like turkeys and chickens. I actually did get a headache from that goddarn turkey because of what they use to clean the bird out with. So that chemical that they use in the process of cleaning turkeys and chickens in the processing plants, yes, turkeys and chickens are processed, whether they're whole birds or not. When they clean them, they inject this saline solution, which is potassium nitrate, I think, into the birds. And anyways, it gives me just this crippling headache. And the only thing that will take the headache away is Benadryl, but I can't take Benadryl because if I take the Benadryl, then I can't function. So anyways, we're going to touch on weather and markets and everything else that is going on as long as William stays sleeping here. The weather is just crappy for me. I know it seems like out west, I watch Jeff Raymond here. He's picking corn or combining corn, and you know, down I see Big Tractor Power. He is filming all over the place, from making hay to picking corn or combining corn. You know, How Farms Works has got their combine ready to go, and I'm sure just about everyone else that is in the Midwest is just chomping at the bit to get out into the field. Just don't jump the gun, because jumping the gun in $3.50 corn is going to cost you in propane. Propane is not cheap. Used to dry a lot of corn. We would jump the gun, try to get wheat or rye in behind the corn, which is, wheat behind corn is not great. That creates the vomitoxin, or that becomes more susceptible to vomitoxin. Wheat after soybeans is a more viable option, or a cheaper option, but stay away from the corn. And wheat, but you can put rye in behind wheat. But yeah, so this is a type of year that you really don't want to be going, you know, full bore before the crop is ready. I mean, we've all learned over the years, or at least the older generations have learned over the years, that you don't plant until the ground is ready. So why would you harvest before the grain is ready? Dollars out of your pocket are dollars out of your pocket. You can't get them back. Maybe when corn was $9 and beans were $18, yeah, you could throw some money away and not feel too bad about it. But you know, now at $3.50, and I'm just generalizing here, $3.50 and I think $6 and some cents for beans is what it was. No longer $9. They've taken a big hit because of the tariffs. And that's not going to last very long. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, that Donald Trump, he's fucking the farmers. Well, you know, I'm sorry that some of the farmers have overextended themselves, and yes, grain prices have dropped dramatically. And is it fair to us that they are dropping like this? Hell no. I'm tired of being the pawn of world trade, and farmers are really the pawn of world trade. It's happened every single time there's been a tariff. Do I agree with tariffs? No. Do I agree that tariffs are getting the attention of the world purchasers or the world trade? Yes. And that's actually a good thing, because us getting reamed in the ass with our industry. And, you know, and I'm going to tell you a little story here. Back in 2003, I bought Roro. The Roro is the 4960. The reason Roro is called Roro, or the 4960 is called Roro, is because it was a roll-on, roll-off. That tractor I bought in Germany back in 2003, and I had it shipped across. Well, when I went to pick it up in the Port of Elizabeth, actually in the very same berth as I did the last two tractors that I got from England, the 8530 and the 7530, I drove right out into the berth, spun the truck and trailer around, had more than 1 million acres of room to turn around and stuff, and that's where they were bringing stuff into the country and sending it out. So, but this time it was choked. There was just no room to do anything. You couldn't load in the berth anymore. You had to load outside on the street. It was a pain in the ass. Probably the worst thing about picking those tractors up was actually picking the tractors up, or buying those tractors was picking them up. So back when things were going out of the country, you know, you saw down the line where they were exporting stuff, and then the importing side was where I was picking up my tractor. Now there is so much stuff coming into the country, it's staggering. But the stuff that's going out of the country was kind of minimalized. It's really sad. So if putting a tariff out there will get the attention of China and telling them, hey, we're not gonna take your crappy tier 2 shit anymore. We're gonna make American stuff, or you're gonna make a higher quality and sell it competitively, or you're gonna buy as much crap from us as we buy from you. And what China buys from the United States is grain. They do. They buy a lot of grain from the United States, because what the hell do they need to buy, you know, industrial supplies for? Maybe tool and die stuff, but I don't even think they're making that here anymore. It's kind of sad, but anyway, yeah. So corn and soybeans have hit really a 15-year low. I haven't seen corn this low in at least 15 years. Back in 2004, I was selling corn for $2, and ever since then it went up. So, yeah. So if we've ridden a pretty decent high on corn for all these years, a lot of farmers should have had some bank accounts, you know, filled up for times like this. Now, I know there's a lot of farmers out there that just bought green iron or red iron or blue iron or yellow iron and or even another color of red or gray or whatever, with the money that they made in corn and soybeans over the last, say, 8 years, 8, 9 years, 10 years. You know, because after 2004, things were slow to come back up, and you know, it was probably not till 2008 when things really started to climb up. You know, China started buying a lot more soybeans and corn from us. But here's the cold hard fact. Where is China going to get their grain from? It's not like new fields are being formed on some continent that we don't know about. It's not like all of a sudden Australia's drought disappears and they're growing corn in Australia again, because I don't think they grow much corn in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, the corn and soybeans are still going to come from the United States. This is how stupid this really is. The only difference now is that China's going to say, hey, Brazil, hey, Argentina, hey, whoever, we are not buying from the United States. We're not buying soybeans and corn from the United States, or wheat from the United States, so we need to buy it from somewhere else. Can you supply it? And Brazil, Argentina, whoever else is out there, and like, sure, no problem. Click. Ooh, William just jumped. Hey, United States, we just got an order from China for like 20 billion bushels of corn. Can we purchase some? And the United States markets are like, sure, no problem. We've got plenty because China canceled our orders. How much? And they're like, well, we really don't want to buy too much because, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or we don't want to pay too much because we know what kind of bind you're in. So let's do it for blah, blah, blah. And the markets are set. They're set in the, you know, so the United States, their price is $3.50 a bushel for corn. But Brazil, they turn around and they sell it to China for, say, $5. You know, $5 for corn. Boom! Hey, we got a hell of a deal because we were buying corn from the United States for $7. Now we're buying it for $5. So Brazil, they just made $2 a bushel on everything, and that spurs their economy, fucks our farmers in the ass, and so on and so forth. And I know there's going to be people out there who say, you don't know anything about buying and selling and trade. Well, I do know one thing. Corn doesn't grow in riverboats on the Mississippi. And it doesn't get shipped to a hole in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean either. It gets shipped to markets. It's bought and sold worldwide. This is nothing new. This is nothing unusual. The only thing that's new and unusual right now is that there's tariffs against China to get them to be a fair trade partner. I have no problems with trading with China as long as the quality of the product is good and they're purchasing the same number back at us so that the money just flows back and forth instead of this $10 trillion or $15 trillion trade deficit that we've got with China. You know, and that's a trade deficit is, if you don't know, is the difference between what we're purchasing from that country and what they're purchasing from us. That is what trade is. I will give you cheap plastic toys for your children, and you give me grain to feed our hogs so we can feed our people pork. You know, and that's how it works. Pork and chicken. You know, and beef, baboy, if you're in the Philippines. But anyway, that's the way these things work. Now, I've had some world experience. I've been around, you know, a few times. I've gone places like England, Belgium, France, you know, and you know, I've been into Taiwan a little tiny bit. I'd like to go explore that island a little more, but the Philippines is my choice of travel. It just is. I like it there. Now, the first time I went to the Philippines, I never saw any grain coming in and out. The second time, didn't notice any grain coming out. The third time, I remember seeing a ship with corn and wondering, what the hell is all that dust? And they unloaded the boat, and it was gone, and I never saw another one. Now, this year, I went twice, if you don't remember. I went in February, March, and March. February I was in Japan. March I was in the Philippines. And then we went back in May because we had to do some work there, paperwork. Anyway, both times, every single day, there was a ship getting unloaded with corn. Every day. So the Philippines is stocking up on corn, and, you know, as if they didn't know, you know, that there was going to be this trade war, there was uncertainty in the markets, or maybe they bought that corn from China because they had an abundance of it or whatever. I don't really know, but I have seen stuff getting offloaded that I had never previously seen in past years. So that's just, to me, that's, the grain market is unstable right now, but the grain is still going to go down that Mississippi River. It's still going to go out of the Port of Elizabeth. It's still going to go out of God knows where on the West Coast. Seattle, I guess it goes out in Seattle. I'm not 100% sure, but 90%. So anyway, so it's still going to go out. It's still going to be sold. The only ones that are going to make the money is the middleman, and the ones that are going to save money through this trade war is China. China and the European Union. I mean, there's some tariffs that went against them for steel and aluminum. Same with China. We used to make steel and aluminum right here in the good old US of A. It was the best quality steel and aluminum that you could get. And then all of a sudden, these other markets, now, they start filtering into the United States and cutting our throats because they don't have the blood-sucking, life-sucking, job-killing unions out there. And if you're a union man, I'm sorry to say, but unions are outdated. I think that Congress and lawmakers in the United States have pretty much outdated the unions by the labor laws that your lobbyists, you know, wanted to push through. Now you're just collecting money to hurt the workers. You know, I mean, my nephew Cody, he went to California to work in a refinery, and he couldn't do anything because it wasn't within his job description. If he touched it, he would be in trouble with the union. How stupid is that? I mean, really, how stupid is that? If he had, and this is one example, he didn't talk too much about it, but he said there was a shipment that had gotten lost. I don't know what the shipment was, whether it was a cardboard box with fittings in it or what, I have no idea. But it was something that he could have walked over, picked up, put in his car, took back to where it belonged, and been done with it. But he couldn't do it because it wasn't in his job description. He couldn't do it. So he had to locate. He was allowed to locate. He was not allowed to touch the item. He was allowed to locate it, look at the box with the code, beep, beep, and go back to the office, call so-and-so, get them to call someone else that could go down where it was in their job description, to go down to where this box or whatever had been dropped off, and then pick it up and take it to its proper place. How silly is that? I mean, it's just off the wall stupid. So that's the type of crap that screws up the United States. Now, you go across the pond or across the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, say to China, Japan, or whatever, and, hey, we lost a box. We don't know where it is. Can you send so-and-so down to look for it? Okay, no problem. He goes, he looks for it, he finds it, he grabs it, picks it up, takes it back. Doesn't go through 5 different people just to figure out how to pick up a box and take it to where it belongs. And that's the unions. That's what the unions have done. And they call that job protection. Fuck you. Just pick the goddamn box up and take it there. That's why I would never work well in the away from the farm, because I would punch somebody in the face for being that stupid. I mean, it is really ridiculous. So anyhow, that's just my rant on that. I know that there's a bumper crop of soybeans. I see my neighbor's beans. They look really good. I've seen the corn. The corn looks really good on the East Coast. I don't know what it looks like in the midsection of the country. But from all accounts that I've seen as I went across, the crops look pretty good across the country. At least up until the Nebraska border. After that, I have no idea. Up in Wisconsin, where the How Farms works, I went up there in June, and beautiful crops. They look great. They look great. I mean, and I know that they went dry there for a while, but they still look pretty good, and you can watch them. Minnesota Millennial Farmer, great crops. I've seen his corn. They did a yield test on that. They did a yield test on that, and it was 220, 225, which is, great for them, I guess, but he's going to need it because of the low price. And, I'm not going to get into supply and demand, because I think Zach might think I'm picking on him, but, pushing your grain to the limit, there's 2 sides to every corn. Yeah, you're going to get the most out of your ground, and you're going to get them, you're going to have a little more money at the end in current market conditions. But if we all cut down our outputs, say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to shoot for 300 bushels or 250 bushels. I'm going to shoot for 150 to 175 bushels, and we drop the national average corn yield, we'll make more money. Our equipment will wear out faster. It won't wear out as fast for the simple reason, and I know there's a lot of farmers out there that think I'm a total jackass for saying this, but it's supply and demand, dummies. It's supply and demand. When there is an oversupply, the demand is less, the price drops. Right? It's just like with these tariffs. China says, forget it, we don't want to buy it, even though they're getting it anyway, but we don't want to buy it from the United States because they're pissing us off. So, the demand isn't there, so the supply is abundant, and blah, blah, the price drops. So, if we all could produce a little bit less over all of our acres, if we all produced a little bit less over all of our acres, even if it's just 5 bushels the acre, 5 bushels over how many million acres in the United States turns into 5, say a million, it's 5 million bushels. 5 million bushels that isn't there to sell creates a demand. Uh-oh, what are we going to do? $9 corn. Woohoo! So, if you're making 220 bushels of corn, right, at $3.50 a bushel, let's just use $3.50 because it's easy. $3.50 a bushel, or you're producing 175 bushels at $9 a bushel. Wow. Okay, so where are you making more money? You're making more money all the way around. You're using a little less fertilizer. Yay. Your equipment isn't going to be wearing out as fast because you're not augering up that corn. You're not putting it up in the bins. You're not building bins to store this corn. Think about this for a while. If you start doing the math on it, it's like, wow, he's kind of right. Maybe I'm not totally right, but I'm kind of right. So instead of 220 bushels and, all right, say 180 bushels, that'll do it. That's 40 bushels less. 40 times 350. What the hell's 40 times 350? 4 times 350. 4 times 350. 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 120. Well, whatever. Anyway, it just makes more sense. Less is less. Less fuel. Less auger wear. Less combine wear. Less wear. Less everything. And you're getting 3 times the amount of money for that corn. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get $9 a bushel, but I can almost guarantee you $9 a bushel if you took 40 bushels to the acre off of every acre that's out there. If the average yield in the Midwest is 175 bushels, I think I heard that somewhere. I was like, wow. And you brought it down to, say, 150 bushels to the acre. That's 25 bushels less. 25 bushels less is a lot of bushels less. You will get more money for it. And it's kind of silly. Oh, you're going to have less weight at the elevator. I guarantee you that. What's the worst thing for a truck driver to do? Sit. They sit there on the CB radio and they start to vibrate because they don't want to be there. They want to be back at the field. Farmers too. We don't be sitting waiting around. Forget it. We got work to do. So it just is what it is. But nobody's going to do this. Farmers cannot get together and say, hey, let's shoot for 175 bushel corn instead of 250 bushel corn, and let's see where that brings us. Because I guarantee you there's a lot of chemical companies that are going to be screaming. There's going to be a lot of fertilizer companies that are going to be screaming. There's a lot of equipment companies that are going to be screaming. They're all going to be screaming and hollering. Electric, propane. It'd probably bring the price of propane down because there isn't going to be that big of a demand. Natural gas is cheap anyway, but how many people in the Midwest are using natural gas at this point? Maybe a lot. I don't know because I'm not out there. But if you look at the whole big picture, and it's like, well, wait a minute. If I only produce 175 bushels and my propane bill goes from $3 a gallon down to $2.25, I've saved 75 cents a gallon. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not using as much of it. I'm going to have more money in my pocket. Oh, and the grain is worth more. Oh, plus you'll have a little more time for your family. You won't be working all night long trying to haul that 220, 250 bushel corn into the farm to get it dried, and your wife isn't going to be banging the mailman because you're out in the combine fooling around, doing what you think is best for the people. And I understand what it's like to be a farmer. Yes, we want to produce the highest yield. Yes, we want that personal best. We want that I guess it's an ego that drives us like, oh man, I grew 222 bushel corn. And I did. The best I ever did on shit ground was 222 bushels here in Kingwood Clay. I mean, we're talking, I have webbed feet from walking across these fields. It's not beautiful soils of the Midwest. Why do you think the farmers left the East Coast and went to the Midwest when, the Great Migration after they killed all the Indians off? They did because the soils were good. It was fertile soil. Here in the East Coast, it's not fertile soil. It's acid. It requires a lot of everything just to grow a halfway decent crop. We do have some good soils up north here, and I call that idiot-proof ground. That's one of those things you could take the seed, throw it on the ground, come back in this fall, and harvest a bumper crop. I mean, I picked corn at my grandparents' place, my mom's side of the family, which is only like 6 miles to the north of us. And you want to talk about yield? Over 200 bushels to the acre. It was beautiful corn, and it was just beautiful corn. And that's on 38-inch rows. You do 220 bushels, 250 bushel corn on 38-inch rows. I mean, the ears were fighting to get into the feeder house. I had the TR70 at the time, so it was a slow combine, but man, I worked on that. Soybeans in 2002, it was a drought year, and down here we were getting 15 to 18 bushels. Up there I was getting 45, and it was the same weather pattern. It's only 6 miles to the north. There's no difference. I'm getting 45 bushels where we're getting 18 bushels. Of course, the deer had something to do with it, and that's just the way that is. But yeah, I cannot believe this little boy is sleeping. He hears his daddy's voice. I should probably record these and then put them on a loop so that he hears my voice over and over again. He'll sleep all night then, I'm sure, because he just loves his daddy. just loves his daddy, doesn't he? Yes, he does. So, anyways, these are just my thoughts and opinions. If you think I'm a jackass, think really hard about this thing. It is truth. It isn't stupidity. It is experience. It is what really happens. I mean, when there's a big drought or a big flood in the center of the country, what happens to corn and soybeans? I mean, you only drop the bushel average down 2 to 3 bushels to the acre in those scenarios. Because, let's face it, a drought in the Midwest is just a small section of the Midwest, and then the other sides of it, they've gotten rain and it makes up for it. So there's only a few bushels difference. But if you were to take literally 5 to 10 bushels to the acre off of the average, the national average, that would make every farmer in the United States some serious dinero. Now, of course, the governments would step in and be like, you can't do this. This is not right. Because, farmers don't organize. What was it, the NFO or whatever the heck it was, National Farm Organization? Those dirty bastards, they tried to organize, but, they said what to do back in the day. I think that was in the 60s. Oh, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do. Take a note from the French farmers. The French farmers go and they burn potatoes and tires when the prices get low. You're gonna make us go bankrupt. Then they start burning shit in the roads, blocking roads until the government comes to its knees. Because you know what? The people have spoken. We are the people, and our voice is silenced. And if you go to the meetings in the wintertime, every meeting, this is what you got to do to get that high yield. This is what you got to do that. This is what you got to do to make the most, become more profitable. And in fact, we're actually dogs running to the end of our chain. And when we've spent the big dollars, and then all of a sudden, and that's okay when we're getting $6, $7, $8 a bushel for our corn, but when we have a tariff situation that's going on right now, that chain gets short really, really quick. And it's going to break our necks. It's going to break all of our necks, if you're in that corn or soybeans. I mean, the guy up the road here, he just put in new bins, 2 new legs and all sorts of stuff, and he's probably watching his channel. He knows what I'm talking about. And now he's lost ground to other farmers who think that, $200 or $150 an acre rent for mediocre ground is a smart idea, just to put him out of business so he can get bigger. It's like, wow, I saw what was going on up there. Now he's got problems because he's got all these bins built and no grain to fill them. He spent millions of dollars, $1 million, to build bins and a leg and dryers, 2 dryers. I don't understand that. 2 dryers, 1 leg centrally located, not 2 legs. What are you, crazy? Anyway, he did this, and now we're at that $3.50 corn rate, which is costing more to grow it than you're going to get out of it. Plus the tractors, the combines, the corn planters, the sprayer, and all this stuff. That factors into it, and they're in trouble. I'm not in trouble with my hay production. I'm actually doing good. I'm doing good. I don't have a problem with the production that I have. My problem is this cotton picking weather. I have hay on the ground. It looks like it rained last night again. I'm supposed to be baling today. I'll get it baled. I mean, I'm not too worried. I bought that second baler. I've hot rodded that thing to make it bale as best as I can, and I'm just hoping and praying that I can get it done. And I will. Even if it's up until December, I will get this hay baled. I have literally, and this is no joke, 3,500 acres of hay to make. The reason I still have 3,500 acres of hay to make is because I've refertilized everything, and it has grown like literally to my knees again for a second cut. Kudos to me. Excellent. The problem is getting it in the bale. Me and Dad and Tim, we mowed probably 300 acres between yesterday and the day before. Yeah, 50, 100, 200, 300, about 300 acres in those 2 days, an afternoon. We had to wait till the rain stopped. And then yesterday we mowed all day. I mowed 57 acres. He mowed 60 acres. And in that spot, then we went down and I mowed another 20, so 50, 60, 70. And then he did another 20, so 70 is 140 plus the 100, 240. And then Timothy mowed, he mowed another 30 or so. Yeah, we're at 300 acres on the ground, plus the 100 acres I've got on the ground for a week, 2 weeks. And that's what I really wanted to bale today, was the hay that I have on the ground for 2 weeks. So I'm going to send somebody over to the field this morning to rake those fields. And hopefully this afternoon we get the sun. We're supposed to have 5-mile-an-hour wind and sunny weather after this mist goes through this morning. And hopefully I can get that baled. So that's the plan. I'm going to send him over with the big square, the 4x4 baler, the Heston, and get those on there so there's less bales to haul home. And yeah, but anyway, I've talked for 30 minutes. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm sorry. If you think I'm a jackass, that's okay, because I've been called a jackass before. This is nothing new. But think long and hard about what is actually going on in the agricultural world. And we are pawns to a much larger puzzle, you know, in a much larger game of chess. And as a farmer, I'm sick and tired of being used as a pawn. The tools that we have today to voice our opinions are awesome. YouTube, great way to voice your opinions. Now, I've watched a lot of farming channels, and I'm going to go on for another 5 minutes, I know it. I've watched a lot of other great farming channels, and they're still on the highest yield. Let's make the highest yield. Let's make the highest yield. I get it. I understand your thought process. You've been taught that higher yield, more profit, higher yield, more profit, higher yield, more profit, year after year after year. And then I hear some farming channels, one in particular, Zach from Millennial Farmer, said that he has to take the government handout, because if he doesn't take out the government handout, his neighbors will, and his neighbors are going to come and they're going to rent that ground away from him, and he has to do this, because if he doesn't, he's going to be out of business. Well, I agree, because we're all in this world together. We're 1 or 2% of the population in the United States, and they've all been brainwashed to think higher yields produce higher profits, when in the reality, it's backwards. It's backwards. It's out of balance. My dad was reading some paperwork here on Wisconsin dairy farmers and how they are just quitting at such a phenomenal rate. Now, I always thought of Wisconsin as being dairy from one end to the other. And back in the early 90s, when I went up through Wisconsin and along the Iowa and Wisconsin border there, Dubuque, you came down, I believe it was Route 20, I don't even know, maybe it was 20, it's been so many years ago. And it's like, holy shit, I just did that in June this year. The dairy barns are gone. They just bulldozed them. I mean, from one end of Iowa to the other to Wisconsin, the dairy barns are not just empty, they're bulldozed, you know? They're gone. So all that grain that used to go into milk production is now going out onto the market. Now, whether the mega dairies are buying it, I don't know. Of course, they have to be. Beef production is now not, you know, and that was another thing in Iowa in the early 90s. Everything was fenced off. You had red brand fencing. Now the fences are gone. They bulldozed them out. They pulled them off. They scrapped them. And why did they do that? Because of feedlots, the Monford feedlots in Colorado and other parts of the country. They've concentrated where the beef is grown. They've concentrated where milk is produced. They've concentrated all this together. And they've taken the family farm, wrapped it up into a corporation, and that's what we get. And then it's big headline news when we get foot and mouth disease or hoof and mouth disease, or we get avian flu or Asian flu or bird flu or any of this stuff. We get swine fever and all these weird diseases that you wonder where they come from. Well, I'm going to tell you where they come from. They come from overpopulation. When you overpopulate animals, it doesn't matter how healthy you think those animals are or how healthy they are. All it takes is one fly with the wrong bacteria to land on a pig, and in a small farm setting, like somebody that raises 50 hogs a year or 100 hogs a year or 200 hogs a year, I mean, that's a lot of hogs, but 50 to 100 hogs a year, that 100 hog operation, the hoof and mouth or the swine flu, they destroy those hogs, they're gone, and nobody else is affected. But when you go in to say, who is it? It's going to be Leidy's, or any of these other big companies that have tens of thousands of hogs and you get that same one fly, it doesn't kill one hog. It kills them all. Hundreds of thousands of them. Uh-oh, Junior's waking up. You waking up there, little boy? So, piglets. I know somebody who worked at, oh, what the hell's the name of the damn, it doesn't even matter what the name of the company is. They lost all the piglets. They all died. So, they have a whole house that is designed just for baby pigs, little piglets. Hoglets, if you want to call them hoglets or piglets. Piglets. They all died. Why did they die? Well, they got some kind of a disease in them. They didn't lose, in a 100 cow or 100 hog operation, you have 20, 15, 10, 15, 20 sows, and if 5 of them have piglets, and you get that disease, you lose 5 batches of piglets. So what do you get? Maybe 6 or 8 piglets at a time? I don't know. I haven't raised hogs in years. What the hell would it be? 6 or 8? Yeah, about 6 or 8. I don't think they get any more than that. I've seen a lot of little piglets from an old sow. But anyways, you lose 5, 10 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. You lose 25 piglets. You don't lose 25,000 piglets, in one shot like that. So the way the government and I call it, it is the government. The government pushes for mass production of beef, pork, poultry. They push for this in mass quantities in concentrated mass quantities, because there is control there, and anyway, I guess I'm done. It's 36 minutes of talking about this stuff. I liked it better when we all raised a few chickens, a few hogs, milk cows, grew a couple 300 acres of corn and soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, rye, whatever it was that we grew, barley, and we all made a living on about 150 to 300 acres of ground, and we were happy. We put our kids through college. I mean, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they came from Hungary. My great-grandfather came, on the Pandy side, mined copper in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then he mined coal in Monaville, West Virginia. Then when he started with the Black Lung, he came up to New Jersey, bought a farm, the farm that I reside on and work from, and made a living. He did some moonshining, but made a living with milking cows, sheep, pigs, whatever the hell it was. I don't think sheep, but pig, hogs, and chickens. And my grandfather, I think, had rabbits. And New York was the market. So weekly there was the market. And it wasn't mass. I know there was hogs, because the old hog pens, we just bulldozed when we built the Taj Mahal, we bulldozed the cement pads away, and but those were hog houses. They still had the cement troughs and stuff in them, plus the chicken houses. But yeah, the chicken houses, the hog houses, they did all this stuff and they made a living at it. They didn't have to have the fanciest of the fancy, and they lived pretty well. They did okay. They did really well. They paid for the farm, and they did what they did, and it was done. But now, you try to buy a farm. Try to buy a farm in New Jersey. For 100 acres, you're looking at $1.2 million. And that ain't much. 100 acres, big deal. For $1.5 million or $1 million, well, let's just say $1.5 million for that ground. To do what? Grow $3.50 corn? To grow $8 beans? Man, you ain't going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. You got to do a lot of other ground besides that. Anyway, I guess I'm done for now. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Check out One Lonely Farmer if you've never been to that channel. That's my other channel. That's my everyday channel. And I got William to sleep for almost 40 minutes by listening to my voice and talking to you guys. So thanks again.